There is a lot going on at the track today. As you guys can see, there is about 150 kids in here. I didn't realize this was going on today, but towards the end of the school year, they usually end with like a field day where they have kind of running different competitions going on. So they run like a 60. They did kind of like a makeshift shot put. I think they're about to run like a 600 meter right now. But change of plans for today. I wanted to do some 10s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. Try to prep for a 40-yard dash later on in the week. I'm probably only going to be able to do 10s and 20s because there's a lot of people at the end of the track. I don't know if I'm going to get into my 30s and 40s today. I figured since we're here at the track, do a little video on how I like to set up on a sprint from a three-point stance. Give you guys some tips on how you can measure your 10 and 20 meter dash, even if you don't have the ability to have timing eyes like I do. What I've done here today is I've got 10 meters set up. You guys can see the first 5 meters. So each one of these cones is going to be set up at 1 meter intervals. So this is meter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you don't have any sort of system where you could time, or you don't have somebody who can sit there and stopwatch you, setting up cones and filming yourself is a great way to get a little bit more of a measure on how you're doing your sprints. So it's not going to be the most accurate, and there are some flaws with doing this, but it is better than doing absolutely nothing. The focus of today's session is just working on that first 10 to 20. Was going to do some 30s and 40s. We'll see if that happens or not. But no sled work today. Kind of doing everything at a 95% effort. Not all out today. We want to hit high intensities, but we don't want to blow ourselves up and burn out too much before we test a 40-yard dash later on this week. Starting with the three-point stance. The way I like to do my three-point stance is I get onto the line. My front foot, I like to have 1 foot behind. So I start with my left leg in front. So what I'll do is I'll put my right toe on the line. I'll put my left toe behind the heel of my right foot. Then my back foot is going to be somewhere around from my knee to the front of my toe. So I like to line up my opposite knee pretty damn close to the front of my left foot. And then I'll put that foot down into the ground behind me somewhere that's going to allow me to feel where I can get a good push. That's going to be where my feet are going to be at. Hand is going to be on the line. I like to try to line up my thumb to the middle of my quad here. That allows me to feel like I've got a good amount of balance. This arm from this position right here, you should have a straight line, maybe even a little bit of a forward lean from your shoulder. So get that shoulder above the wrist, and then as you bring yourself up, you want to just raise the hips, keep that shoulder above the wrist, and then you're going to do your sprint. So this is going to be rep number 1 on the 10s. Now with the cones, let's say you don't have the ability to have a timing system out. You could measure that first 5 yards by counting your steps and trying to mark where those steps are at through that first 5 meters. Ideally, if you become very efficient at accelerating, your 4th step should be as close to 5 meters as possible, maybe even a little bit past that 5 meters. Remember the video I did, I think a few weeks back, where I was kind of breaking down the acceleration principles and how you want to project yourself out. Filming yourself is a great way to kind of tune your mechanics. You could film a rep, watch it a little bit, see what you need to do on the next rep to kind of tweak some things. Measuring out that first 5 just gives you a visual cue when you can go back and watch your videos later on and go, okay, step number 5 was at 5 meters, or step number 6 was at 6 meters. And then you can go back, keep notes of that, continue to train, let's say 8, 12, however many weeks later on down the road. You go, okay, step number 5 was past 5 meters now. That means you're clearing more ground, the same amount of steps, which should translate into you getting a little bit faster. Good way to kind of measure things out. I don't do, like some people call these acceleration ladders, and they have very specific marks. Most people don't need acceleration ladders because you're not competing at the Olympics. You don't need to have everything measured down to the exact step. So marking out 1 meter at a time is going to be more than enough for the majority of you guys. So we're going to go into rep number 2 here. Again, 1 foot back for that front leg. Put that knee down. figure out where the back leg needs to go. I think I'm gonna do probably 3 total 10s here. Tell you what, 10s are feeling good today. They're running 600s right now. There's probably 100 kids running around the soccer field right now. Today is a little bit different than my normal Mondays. Normally I'm out here, I do some sled work, have a lot of resisted accelerations, going as hard as I can. Today we're kind of dialing it back, 95%, which I still consider to be speed training. If you start going below 95, you start getting away from the intent and stimulus of sprinting. The rest in between each of those should still be near full recovery today. We're not doing an actual workout where we're trying to like build capacity. We're not too focused on the overall volume on everything. So you do your 10 meters, rest to full recovery, do another 10 meters, try to maintain that intensity at 95% as you go through. So I'm gonna do one more 10, and then I think I'm gonna do 2 20s if I have enough room down the track. Depending on how the 20s go, I might bust out some 30s and 40s, but we'll see. What I'm gonna try to do on this next 10 is I'm gonna try to slow it down so you guys can see the angles and the projection that I'm kind of focusing on specifically through this first 5 meters. So you guys can see kind of what I'm dealing with right now. I've got this lane right here to work with. My 20 meters is right there. That lady at the desk is probably about 10 to 15 meters down. So doing 20s is no problem. But you guys can see the mass amount of children that are in here right now. I think they're getting ready to do some tug of war. But this is, I think, close to the end. So I'm probably gonna have enough time to do another 1 to 2 reps on the 20. And then maybe be able to sneak in some 30s and 40s here, but we'll see depending on how crazy this gets with the kids. I think I'll be able to squeeze in some 30s. 40s might be tricky because now I'm starting to get into the crowd of where the kids are. So I started off with some 10s, went into some 20s, now going into some 30s. I've kept these 5 cones here the entire time because I really want to focus on hammering that first 5 to 10 meters out as perfect as possible, and then just extend that to the 20-meter sprint, into the 30-meter sprint, and then possibly into the 40. The focus, like I said today, is high effort, tweak some technique, make sure everything feels good, because later on this week we're going to go test the 40. So as tempting as it is to set the cones up and try to do a 40-yard dash right now, today's not the day. I feel really good. These 95% efforts are feeling like everything is just clicking and doing what it's supposed to do. Days like that, it is tempting to try and do something and time it and run fast today, but I'm gonna stay within the plan today, stick with what I got laid out, which is 95% efforts, 10, 20s, and 30s. That's kind of the idea I got right now. Gonna see if I can't get these kids to clear out of my lane so I can bust out a 30 or 2, and then we'll see how it goes. So that first rep felt really good. We'll try to get 2 more in. It's a little crowded down there. Overall, I feel very strong. When you sprint a lot and you develop this feeling that you're kind of floating as you run, that feeling for me is when I know that I'm gonna be running some fast times. You just feel like you hit the ground, you bounce off of it, you're able to just move nice and smooth, which is the reason why we're doing 95% efforts and not trying to go all out. I wanna be every rep smooth, focus on what I need to get done. I'm gonna try to do another rep and not bulldoze a kid as I get down there. Fun thing, oh, here's a fun story. I was running track in high school, and our middle school next to my high school was very close to the high school. So they would sometimes walk over during track season and do a practice with the high school team. We're doing relay handoffs. So I'm the anchor leg. We got a guy at the corner running around, just practicing that handoff, and then I would take off for 20 meters and run 20 meters hard. I'm going through, starting a 3-point stance. My guy hits the mark, I take off, I start running. He says stick, put my hand back, I get the stick. As soon as I get the stick in my hand, I turn my head up to start taking off. One of the middle school kids is right in the middle of my lane, and he got absolutely truck sticked. It's the hardest I've ever hit anybody in my life. And I played football at a pretty high level. That kid got absolutely obliterated. It was kind of like, you remember Randy Johnson when he threw the baseball and hit the bird? I was the baseball, that child was the bird. Luckily, he didn't get hurt. Obviously, he was crying a lot. He was more scared than anything. He didn't break anything, no concussion, anything like that. He just got bulldozed by somebody that was a lot bigger than him. So I'm gonna try to avoid that today. I don't wanna hit one of these kids and have a repeat of Randy Johnson versus the bird. So I'm gonna wait here for a second, hopefully get a clear lane, and then try to sneak another rep in. I was able to get my 30s in. There's no way I'm getting 40s in. The kids are starting to pile up down there. They're also starting to do a tug of war competition. So if you hear some screaming in the background, more than likely it's because they're about to try to rip each other apart with the rope. Intent of today's session, I felt, was met perfectly. 95% efforts, 10, 20s, and 30s. I wanted to do 40s because I wanted to do something that's just going to be a little bit longer than what I'm going to test for later on this week. The fact that I didn't get the 40s doesn't really change the fact that I still had a really good session. You can probably hear the screaming now. I think tomorrow I'm going to go into the gym, knock out some depth jumps, maybe hit some weight room stuff, but I more than likely won't do a whole lot in the weight room this week, because I'm more focused on testing that 40 first and then do some testing on some weight room numbers the day after that. So maybe on Thursday, I test the 40. On Friday, go in, hit a power clean, maybe do a box squat, something. And then the weekend, possibly do like a heavy jerk, something like that. But I wanna get my sprinting and my jump test done first. So the day that we do a 40, I'll probably also do a broad jump over in the long jump pit over there. So that's kind of the flow this week. When I get into a period of I'm gonna start testing something, I kind of have more of a general flow that I would like to follow. I know I wanna test my sprinting first before I do anything that's gonna be fatiguing in the weight room. And I know I wanna test my jumping as well. Whatever day that happens on, whether that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the day after that will be the day that I do some of my lifting work. So tomorrow, depth jumps, light weight room work. Wednesday, possibly take that day off prior to Thursday when we go in and test some of the sprint work. Easy day today, not a whole lot. Hopefully you guys got something out of that acceleration breakdown on how you guys can kind of work on some things through that first 5 meters to help you get better at acceleration. Appreciate you guys. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow.